Hello everyone, and welcome to my 19th Pokemon Challenge. After the excitement of Poochyana's solo run last week, our community Discord decided that we should give Zigzagoon a go this week. So here we are, once again asking a very important question. Can you beat Pokemon Emerald with only a Zigzagoon? Before we get too far into the video, I'd like you all to know that I'm working really hard to produce a new Pokemon Challenge video every week, so if you like this content, please consider liking and subscribing as it would really mean a lot to me and it would help the channel grow. Anyways, let's quickly cover the rules so we can begin. Rule number 1. No glitches, hacks, or cheats. I do, however, use speed up, otherwise these videos would take far longer to produce and I'd rather produce them quickly. Rule number 2. I can only use one Pokemon in battle. However, because I am not cheating, I do need to use a gem Pokemon for travel purposes only. And lastly, rule number 3, no items in battle. This doesn't include held items as I use Everstones during some runs, and so other held items are also allowed if necessary. With all of that out of the way, let's begin. As per usual, the first thing we need to do is get our ideal starter. For this run, I had noticed that Zigzagoon's stats are sort of the opposite of Poochyana, meaning that Zigzagoon is fast, but a bit weak in terms of attack. To balance our attack and speed, I opted for an Adamant Nature Zigzagoon for this run, intending on boosting our attack stat as much as we can, while also ensuring that our speed stat continues to grow unhindered. After getting our Ziggy, we quickly knock out the Imposter Zigzagoon. Normally, I would immediately move into EV training, but since I don't want to run into any uncatchable shiny Pokemon during our training, we need to get our first rival battle out of the way. Fortunately, this first battle isn't too difficult, even though it ended super close, and we're able to trade tackles until we're able to knock out the Mudkip. Now that we have access to Pokeballs, we can get our EV training started without needing to fear any uncatchable shiny Pokemon. Thankfully, Route 103 contains everything we need to complete our training. We promptly knock out 252 Poochyana for attack EVs, as well as collectively 252 of both Zigzagoon and Wingull for speed EVs. With our EV training finally finished, we can challenge our first gym leader, Roxanne. You would think that since our level is so high, we could just breeze through this battle, but sadly we ran into some slight issues on our first attempt.
Failure.
Now that you've seen my shame, let's get into the real battle. Roxanne leads with her first Geodude, who we hit with Headbutt for about half health as well as causing it to flinch. On the next turn, another Headbutt knocks out the first Geodude. Roxanne's next Pokemon is her second Geodude, who we also hit with Headbutt for roughly half of its health, while Geodude misses Rock Tomb. We're then able to knock out the second Geodude on the next turn with another Headbutt. Roxanne's last Pokemon is her Nosepass, who we hit with Sand Attack, but were hit with Rock Tomb anyways. We then use Sand Attack again, and this time Rock Tomb misses. We then use Tail Whip, dodging another Rock Tomb, and then another Tail Whip, but this time getting hit with Rock Tomb. Finally, we're ready to fight, using Headbutt for massive damage, but sadly we're hit with Rock Tomb again. Nosepass then eats its Oran Berry, restoring some health, but not enough to protect it from being knocked out by our next Headbutt. As we leave Rustboro, we run into our next rival battle against May. This battle is optional, but I like being thorough, so here we are. Anyways, May leads with her Torkoal, who we hit with Headbutt for huge damage while Torkoal hits us back with Ember. On the next turn, we land another Headbutt and knock out the Torkoal. May's last Pokemon is her Mudkip, who falls to a single Headbutt. I decided that we would fight Brawly this time instead of skipping him since we have a rather good stab normal type move. Brawly leads with his Machop, who we one-shot with Headbutt. Following Machop is Meditite, who we also knock out with a single crit Headbutt after it tries to use Focus Punch. Brawly's last Pokemon is his Makuhita, who we beat down with the deadly force of our forehead. With Brawly taken care of, we make our way towards Mauville for our next gym battle, but we run into May again. May leads with her Lombre, who is easily knocked out by our crit Headbutt. May's next Pokemon is her Marshtomp, who we hit with Headbutt for massive damage and then tank a Mud Shot, lowering our speed. On the next turn, we land another Headbutt and knock out the Marshtomp. May's last Pokemon is her Torkoal. Wait, this isn't Torkoal. Where did Torkoal go? In any case, we knock out May's last Pokemon with a single Headbutt. We finally arrive in Mauville, only to find a green-haired boy blocking the door to the gym. We decide to name him Wally since he's acting like a wall and blocking our path. Unfortunately for Wally, walls cannot stop us, and we headbutt him and his Ralts into the next dimension. Some of you out there may know my history with Watson. He's usually the first steep increase in difficulty during one of these runs. Let's see how this battle goes. Watson leads with his Voltorb, who we knock out instantly with Headbutt. Next up is Electrike, who we're able to once again one-shot with a single Headbutt. Watson's next Pokemon is his Magneton, who we hit with Headbutt for pretty minimal damage before we're hit with Thunder Wave. Magneton then goes for Supersonic twice and misses both times, meaning that we're able to land 2 Headbutts since we didn't suffer from Paralyze and we're able to knock it out. Manectric is Watson's last Pokemon, who uses Howl before we use Headbutt for huge damage. Manectric then eats its Citrus Berry and hits us with Shockwave, but we're thankfully able to land another Headbutt to knock out Watson's last Pokemon. On our way to Meteor Falls, we make a quick stop and grab the TM for Double Team just in case. We then trek up to the top of Mount Chimney to deal with Team Magma being annoying. Team Magma admin Tabitha blocks our path, so we need to deal with him first. Tabitha's first Pokemon is his first Numel, who we one-shot with Headbutt. Following Numel is Poochyena, who we're also able to knock out with a single Headbutt. Up next is Zubat, which is yet another easy knockout with Headbutt. Tabitha's last Pokemon is his second Numel, who faints just like the first after a single Headbutt. Tabitha scurries away after losing his battle against us, meaning that we can move forward and challenge Team Magma boss Maxie. Maxie leads with his Mightyena, who lowers our attack with Intimidate. To account for our lowered attack, we use Belly Drum, sacrificing half of our health for a ridiculous attack buff. We tank a bite from Mightyena and then one-shot on the next turn with Headbutt. Up next is Zubat, who we're also able to disintegrate with Headbutt. Maxie's last Pokemon is his Camerupt, which we completely annihilate with a single Headbutt. Team Magma retreats, and so we make our way down Mount Chimney to challenge Flannery, our next gym leader. Flannery leads with her Numel, who we use Belly Drum against before we tank a takedown for minimal damage. We then proceed to knock out Numel with a single Headbutt. Following Numel is Slugma, who we also obliterate with Headbutt. Up next is Camerupt, who faints to our Headbutt as well. Flannery's last Pokemon is her Torkoal, and thankfully we're still able to one-shot here as well. I grew rather tired of Headbutt only having 15 power points, and so we then make a return trip to Fall Arbor Town where we exchanged the Meteorite for our old friend Return. Return is not only a great stab normal type move for us, but also has more power points and has a stronger max base power with the higher friendship values. Return is simply OP. With Return acquired, we can restart our gym challenge by entering into a battle against Norman. Norman leads with his Spinda, who we take a chance on and use Belly Drum against. Thankfully, Spinda uses Facade for minimal damage instead of using Teeter Dance, allowing us to strike back with Return to knock it out. Up next is Slacking, who we absolutely brutalize with a crit Return. Following Slacking is a Vigoroth, who also cannot even hope to tank our Return. Norman's last Pokemon is his Linoon, who we prove our dominance against as we crush it into dust with the force of our friendship. On our way to our next gym battle in Four Trees City, we stumble upon a Team Aqua operation and end up battling against Team Aqua admin Shelly. Shelly leads with her Carvana, who we very easily take care of with a Return, though Rough Skin does take a smidgen of our health. Shelly's last Pokemon is her Mightyena, who we also are able to one-shot despite Mightyena lowering our attack with Intimidate. Team Aqua is informed of some nefarious activities occurring on Mount Pyre, and so they leave, allowing us to continue towards Four Tree City. However, May halts our progress with yet another one of her cries for attention. Fine. May leads with her Lombre, who slaps us with Fake Out to stall for time. On the next turn, we show Lombre how foolish that is and knock it out with Return. Following Lombre is Slugma, who we immediately knock out with Return. May's last Pokemon is her Marshtomp, who is absolutely vaporized by our crit Return. Arriving in Four Tree at long last, we finally challenge Winona for our next gym badge. Winona leads with her Swablu, who we use Belly Drum against, knowing that so long as Swablu doesn't use Perish Song, we'll be okay. Swablu uses Safeguard, meaning that we can proceed with our Return Rampage without issue, starting with Swablu. Up next is Trompius, who also falls to our Return. Winona then sends out her Pelipper, who uses Pelipper's signature move to block our first Return. On the next turn, though, we're able to take down the Pelipper with Return. Winona then sends out her Skarmory, and thankfully we're able to knock out Skarmory with a single return despite how tanky it can be. Winona's last Pokemon is her Altaria, who we beat with return into the floor. After beating Winona, we make a detour to Lily Cove, and while we're there, we decide to battle May for the last time. May leads with her Trampius, who we immediately knock out with return. Following Trampius is Ludicolo, who we sadly have to use violence against until it stops dancing. Up next is Slugma, who we beat down with return for a one-shot. May's last Pokemon is her Marshtomp, who will never know what it's like to evolve into a Swampert after we're through with it. We march up to the top of Mount Pyre so that we can grab Shadow Ball, something that is extremely useful in this challenge for one particular fight. From there, we deal with Team Aqua harassing the elderly couple at the top of the mountain, and then receive the Magma Emblem, which allows us to find Team Magma's hideout. We then track down Team Magma, who have holed up in their base within the side of Mount Chimney. We run into Tabitha near the bottom of the base, who we challenge to a battle. Tabitha leads with his Numel, who we promptly knock out with return. Following Numel is Mightyena, who lowers our attack with Intimidate. Despite our lowered attack, we're still more than capable of taking out this mangy mutt. Up next is Zubat, who we obliterate with return. Tabitha's last Pokemon is his Camerupt, who we completely annihilate with a single return. Moving past Tabitha, we attempt to stop Maxie from waking up Groudon, but we're too late and he does so anyways. Groudon flies away via the power of imagination, and then Maxie challenges us to a battle. Maxie leads with his Mightyena, who lowers our attack with Intimidate. To make up for this, I decided that we could use Belly Drum to get our attack stats back, and fortunately for us, Mightyena then misses its Swagger, so we were then able to one-shot with return easily. Following Mightyena is Crobat, who also meets its demise at the hands of our return. Maxie's last Pokemon is his Camerupt, who witnesses the pure, concentrated power of friendship at our disposal and promptly faints. Now that Team Magma has been dealt with, we head over to Slateport and find Archie causing issues again, stealing a submarine in classic Archie fashion. We then track down the submarine in Team Aqua's base in Lily Cove. However, Team Aqua admin Matt stands between us and the captured submarine. Matt leads with his Mightyena, who we easily knock out with return. Following Mightyena is Matt's last Pokemon, Golbat, who we also easily knock out with return. The next battle that we need to handle is against Tate and Liza, but as those of you who have seen my other Hoenn solo runs, you know that Tate and Liza are very difficult. I wanted to try something new this time to save a bit of time, so I taught a spare HM Pokemon from earlier, Thief, and then went about fishing for a spell tag on Wild Duskull. Thankfully, it didn't take long to get one, and then we can get back to the gym battle. Or so I thought. As I was double-checking my party before heading into the Tate and Liza battle, I noticed something. We have once again acquired Pokerus. If you don't know, Pokerus is incredibly rare, with only a 3 in 65,536 chance, or a 1 in 21,845 chance of being contracted by one of your Pokemon. I cannot believe that we've gotten it twice in 2 back-to-back Pokemon Solo Run challenges, although I can't lie, I would have preferred a shiny. With our preparations complete, we can now enter into our battle against Tate and Liza. Tate and Liza lead with Xatu and Claydol, while we lead with Ziggy and a Magikarp that can't do anything since we need another Pokemon to start the battle. We start off by hitting Claydol with a Shadow Ball, almost knocking it out, but not quite, while Xatu hits Magikarp with a crit Psychic to knock it out. Claydol then uses Earthquake, hitting us for roughly a third of our health. Tate and Liza then heal up the Claydol, and we decide this is a perfect time to take out the Xatu, hitting it with a Shadow Ball for a one-shot. Replacing the Xatu is Lunatone, but we decide to try knocking out the Claydol again, getting even closer to knocking it out, but still failing, meaning that Claydol uses Earthquake again while Lunatone uses Calm Mind. Claydol is healed a second time, but we use Shadow Ball on Lunatone next, one-shotting it. Solrock is sent out next, but this time we finally get that high roll Shadow Ball and knock out the Claydol while Solrock begins charging a Solar Beam. Thankfully, we're also able to knock out the Solrock with a single Shadow Ball, winning this cursed battle. We are not out of the woods yet though, as Double Battle Island has more in store for us. Team Magma arrives to steal rocket fuel from the Moss Deep Space Center, so we partner up with Steven to put an end to their buffoonery. Tabitha and Maxie lead with Camerupt and Mightyena, who lowers our attack with Intimidate. We start off by using Belly Drum, risking being attacked, but thankfully Mightyena uses Taunt on Matang and Camerupt uses Amnesia. We then use Return on the next turn to one-shot the Mightyena, Replacing Mightyena is Maxie's Camerupt, who arrives just in time to see Metang attack Tabitha's Camerupt with Psychic before Tabitha's Camerupt uses Focus Energy. We then use Return and beat Maxie's Camerupt until it faints, meaning that Maxie's Crobat is sent out. Metang finishes off Tabitha's Camerupt, resulting in Tabitha's Golbat being sent out. On the next turn, we one-shot Maxie's Crobat with Return and then tank a crit wing attack from Golbat, after which Metang uses Reflect. Thankfully, we outspeed and take out the Golbat with Return. Tabitha's last Pokemon is his Mightyena, who lowers our attack and also isn't affected by Metang's Psychic. Not a huge deal though, since we still have more than enough power to knock out Mightyena with ease. Team Magma agrees to go take a climate science course instead of being general nuisances, so that means all we need to do is track down Team Aqua, which isn't so hard. We find Team Aqua at the seafloor cavern where Shelly intends on stopping us. Shelly leads with her Sharpedo, who we hit with Shadow Ball to avoid the Rough Skin proc, but then we're hit with Crunch anyways, so it probably wasn't worth it. We then use another Shadow Ball to knock out the Sharpedo. Shelly's last Pokemon is her Mightyena, who lowers our attack but still cannot withstand the power of our friendship. As we enter Kyogre's chamber, Archie materializes from the shadows and challenges us to a battle. Archie leads with Mightyena, who lowers our attack with Intimidate. Sadly, this time we're just shy of knocking out the Mightyena, meaning that we're hit with Scary Face and slowed. Archie then heals Mightyena, but another Return finishes off the Mighty Mongrel. Archie's next Pokemon is his Crobat, who outspeeds us with Confuse Ray, but thankfully we don't hit ourselves and land a Return for massive damage. Archie heals up the Crobat, but just like with Mightyena, healing your Pokemon cannot save it from the wrath of Ziggy. Archie's last Pokemon is his Sharpedo, who outspeeds us with Slash, and then we hit ourselves in confusion. For some reason, Sharpedo then uses Taunt against us twice, while we break out of confusion and land Shadow Ball twice. Finally, Sharpedo hits us with another Slash, but it's too little too late and one more Shadow Ball tanks out the Torpedo Shark. Archie then awakens Kyogre, who, just like Groudon, is secretly part Flying type and has flying capabilities. After Kyogre blasts off, Archie and Maxie have a moment of realization, finally coming to grips with the fact that they both share one singular brain cell. We head over to Sootopolis to see Pokemon's version of WWE before we're sent to the Sky Pillar to awaken Rayquaza. Apparently, Rayquaza had just been hitting the snooze button this entire time, since all we had to do was look at it disapprovingly for 5 seconds before it went and handled the whole situation for us. Now that Sootopolis is safe, we can challenge Hoenn, who was mysteriously not at all interested in what was happening right outside of his gym. Hoenn leads with his Love Disc, who we use Belly Drum against, hoping that it doesn't confuse us with Sweet Kiss or Water Pulse. We're hit with Water Pulse, but thankfully we're not confused and the sweepening can begin. We absolutely crush Love Disc with our superpowered Return, effectively breaking Hoenn's brittle heart. Whiscash is up next, who we suplex into an early grave. Hoenn then sends out his Celio, who we bludgeon with Return to knock it out. Crawdon is the next adversary to face us, who we beat into the floor with Return. Hoenn's last Pokemon is his Kingdra, who we force to repent for past sins by refusing to allow it a chance to set up Double Team. While trekking through Victory Road towards the Elite Four, I learned something new. Apparently, walls can move, because Wally has come to stand directly in our way once again. Wally leads with his Altaria, who we use Belly Drum against, while Altaria uses Dragon Dance. Dancing can't save you now, Altaria, you silly goose bird thing. Up next is Delcatty, who we hit so hard with Return that it loses all 9 of its lives. Wally then sends out his Magneton, who we hit with Shadow Ball for a one-shot. Roselia is sent out next, who we trample with Return, wilting this poor flower. Wally's last Pokemon is his Gardevoir, who I meant to use Shadow Ball against, but it doesn't matter since the end result is the same. Getting into the Elite Four, Sydney is our first challenge. Sydney leads with his Mightyena, who attempts to lower our attack with Intimidate. However, we make his Intimidate invalid by using Belly Drum. Sadly, Mightyena had an even bigger brain and used Sand Attack, meaning that our Return missed on the next turn, followed up by a second Sand Attack and another miss from our Return. Finally, though, we're able to land a Return and take out the Mightyena. Sydney then sends out his Shiftry, who we try to knock out with Return, but again miss twice, while Shiftry uses Double Team twice. Thankfully, we manage to land a one-shot Return before things get too absurd. Cacturn is up next, who we're able to knock out with a single Return. Sydney's next Pokemon is his Crawdon, who also couldn't tank our Return. Sydney's last Pokemon is his Absol, who failed to recognize that we were the storm that was approaching all along. Sydney was fairly easy, but Phoebe could be very, very annoying. That is, if we didn't pick up Shadow Ball. Seriously, I love having Shadow Ball for this fight, it's so good. Phoebe leads with her first Dusclops, who protects to try to stall our Shadow Ball. However, I saw through this and used Belly Drum instead, maxing our attack and then landing Shadow Ball on the next turn for a one-shot. Phoebe then sends out her first Bayonet, who we blast to pieces with Shadow Ball. Up next is Sableye, who is also a very easy one-shot thanks to Shadow Ball. The second Bayonet is sent out to stop us, but once again finds only failure at the hands of our Shadow Ball. Phoebe's last Pokemon is her second Dusclops, who made the mistake of not having Protect as part of its move pool, and so is completely eradicated by our Shadow Ball. The next Elite Four member is Glacia, keeper of only the thickest of Pokemon. Glacia leads with her first Celio, but I know that there is no threat since she always opens with Hail. We use Belly Drum and sure enough, Glacia uses Hail, essentially giving us a free turn. We then club Celio with Return to knock it out. Up next is Glacia's first Glalie, who we shatter into pieces with Return. The second Celio is sent out next, who meets the same fate as the first, clubbed into unconsciousness. Glacia then sends out her second Glalie, who we break into even smaller pieces than the first. Glacia's last Pokemon is her Walrein, the super thick queen of Glacia's team, but that thickness can't stop the sheer overwhelming force of our friendship. Drake is all that stands between us and the champion, and I have no intentions of being stopped here. Drake leads with his Shelgon, who uses Protect while we buff up with Belly Drum. We then knock out the Shelgon with Return. Following Shelgon is Altaria, who we also knock out with Return. Drake then sends out his Kingdra, which simply cannot exist in this reality after coming into contact with our Return. Flygon is up next, who we outspeed thankfully and bring to an end with Return. Drake's last Pokemon is his Salamence, who lowers our attack with Intimidate. Even with that Intimidate though, we're still more than capable of Dragon Slaying with this much pure power. We've finally arrived at Wallace, the champion of the Hoenn League. I'm a bit worried about using Belly Drum here since Wailord could just knock us out by using Water Spout, but let's see how this goes. Wallace leads with Wailord, and we decide to risk the Belly Drum. And then Wailord uses Rain Dance. GG Wallace, your end is nigh. We then one-shot the Wailord with Return. Up next is Tentacruel, who also meets its end at the hands of our Return. Wallace tries to stop our momentum with his elegant Ludicolo dance moves, but we cannot be distracted now, ending the Ludicolo with only a single strike from Return. Up next is Whiscash, who can only look on in absolute horror as we move in for a fatal blow. Gyarados is finally sent out, who lowers our attack with Intimidate, but it means little to us as we simply cast Gyarados into the next dimension anyways. Wallace's last Pokemon is his Milotic, who at least goes down graciously after our final return of the run. Gotta say, I didn't expect it to be that easy. I had a feeling that Ziggy here would absolutely dominate Pokemon Emerald, but I really didn't think I was prepared for how easy that Elite Four run was. Ziggy here didn't even need to use Double Team at all during any portion of the game. I'm super proud of this run, and I'm frankly shocked that Zigzagoon has access to this many good moves. Zigzagoon certainly proved that it was ready, willing, and able to take on the entirety of Pokemon Emerald all by itself. The final time for this run was 20 hours and 20 minutes, meaning that Zigzagoon is currently the record holder for the fastest solo run through Pokemon Emerald. I'm rather shocked that both Zigzagoon and Poochyena were able to speed through Emerald in half the time of the starter Pokemon, though I'm also sure that I've been getting better as a player through each of these challenges, and so that is reflected in the times. Before we end things off here, I wanted to let you all know that I stream this run over on Twitch, which I plan on doing weekly. Also, if you liked this video, please feel free to leave a like and subscribe, as it would help me out a lot. I've got new Pokemon challenges coming out weekly, so if you liked this video, there are plenty more to come. If you'd like, feel free to leave a comment to let me know how you felt about the video, since I love seeing what you guys think about my content. If you're interested in hanging out, feel free to follow the link below to either my Twitch, my Discord, or my Twitter, if Twitter is still around when you're watching this video. This has been Shro, and thank you for watching.